Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about the latest episode of Pandora. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, I like that we kind of get that opening. It kind of picks up from that thing that Thomas has saw in Jack's head, and I was like, okay, so it's like the moment it started happening, and it's like, oh, this is in 2039. And that moment, I was like, wait, what? It was that far in the past? Wait, so that wasn't the future Thomas was seeing. He was seeing the past. In fact, he was actually seeing a memory. So then part of me started thinking like, okay, so is Jacqueline actually, Jax, is she older than what she actually is? Like, is she some other species? Which obviously everything seems like it's hinting towards that, which has kind of always been what I've thought. But then another part of me was like, or could it be something of like, whatever she really is, she took on the form of Jax? Or could it be that, I'm curious what I start wondering, maybe because this is a big part of this universe is clones and stuff like that. What if she stems from that? But then it seems like she's something other than a clone, even if that was the case, because it seems like there's more to her with what she's capable of doing, but she's definitely not a normal human. We've already kind of classified that, but then the big question is like, well, what the hell is she? And she's able to live that long. I mean, to be fair, we kind of like, it's me kind of skipping around, but Harlan Freed, he's been around that entire time because, or at the very least, he went off and started Parallax. So I guess, cause part of me was wondering like, oh, is that supposed to be him now? Because isn't he the one that's played by Ben Cross, or is that supposed to be like his descendant or something? That's why I'm kind of confused on some of the details. But interestingly enough, Jax is kind of like, whoa, this dream, but it feels weird. She kind of feels like she's actually the one that pulled the trigger. But then it turns out, the only person that kind of really believes her 100% is Raylan, because, the Zatarians believe in, people having connections, like, past lives, I think. They believe in that, so he's like, oh, here's a ritual that can help you tap into those memories, and she does. But the sad thing is, like, tapping into those memories means that she could eventually get lost. But obviously she gets more and more into her past. She was working for Elaine Lou. She's the one that kind of instigated the whole mass migration from Earth, because Earth was, kind of in a very bad condition. But there's this dude named Nelson Fisk. He's the dude that she killed, that Jax killed, and it turns out he was all about saving the planet, because he's like, oh, make Earth great again. Essentially, there were environmental issues that were making Earth uninhabitable soon for people, and it would ultimately be Earth's destruction. But he was working on a means of fixing that, and that's what this whole guilt situation was about for Jax. It's like, not only did she feel like, for her, it wasn't even just like, oh, an ancestor of mine or whatever, or whoever I was in a past life pulled the trigger. She felt like she herself pulled the trigger, so she kind of felt guilt about it, like killing the one person who was on his way to saving the planet. We ended up leaving the planet, sure, but the fact of the matter is we could have stayed on Earth. Like, our entire history could be different, but because of what I did, potentially, I changed everything. It's actually interesting trying to figure, like, beyond just being like the person that was part of like Elaine Lou's, like, apparently she wrote her speeches and stuff like that. So it's almost like she was like, I guess the equivalency would be like a campaign manager or something like that. So it's interesting to know that she plays such a role where she'd be a killer, like going in disguise and stuff like that to take him down. Now, what I thought was kind of interesting, and I'm skipping all over the place, but it turns out, because at first, like I said, she felt bad because it's like, oh my God, I killed someone. But then it turns out everything that, because, Fisk, he got a reputation for being like, oh, he was struck down before he could live out his, plans to, make stuff so that it could fix Earth. But it turns out that was 100% BS. Basically, the plan was like, oh yeah, maybe Lou might have enough time to get everyone migrated off planet, maybe, but because we're setting this whole thing up, we're going to make a whole bunch of money off this device, these CO2 cleaning devices that don't work. And we're going to go off to space. And so Jax, the question then becomes like, well, whose orders did she kill him under? Was it, Elena's, or was it just her own conscience? I'm curious, like, or was it a combination of the two? Like, we never really got, like, the moment she was told to do that. I guess, maybe it kind of came with the job territory. Like, what was she exactly? Maybe she wasn't just a campaign manager. Maybe she was kind of a fixer. So once again, also the question doesn't become like, okay, so what does this have to do with whatever she is, that she is this Pandora? Was the Jax we saw back then human? Did something happen to her and she became this creature, or something happened to her? But then again, let's not forget this Jax has all these memories of, you know, her family and whatnot. So part of me is like, okay, so could it be a thing? Could it be that Pandora is reborn? She is this kind of soldier slash weapon that constantly gets reborn over and over again. Or like I said at the beginning, could it be something that just took like her memories, like, and it's been parading around as Jack? Because that's his thing. It's like you look exactly like her, but 150 years apart, where I'm like, there's something up with that. You know, it's like, so what? I have no idea. I did like that moment when she was kind of under the ritual or whatever, and she's like, and you know, Raylan's like, oh, she's in such deep pain, and then Pilar is like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not pain, and they both got the face like, oh, whoa, okay, and she's got a smile on her face and everything, and it's like, okay, looks like she tapped into a good memory there. But it was kind of interesting because, like, I mean, it's so interesting because it almost seems like this, like, political, obviously, like, it's this large, literally, you know, earth-affecting political scandal that it's almost interesting that she played a pivotal role in kind of almost basically saving humanity, because because of Nelson Fisk dying, that led to all his plans falling apart. So they went with Lena Lou's plan of like migrating. So it's like Earth could have been so much worse off. But it turns out that Harlan was kind of like taking advantage of the situation. It's like, you know, his plan was BS. I know his plan was BS. How about basically you give me a couple ships and give me seed money to start what will eventually become Parallax. And so even him telling Jax like, oh, you know, I get the feeling we'll see each other again. So it's like, okay. Which we know Parallax has connections to Osborn. At the very least, Regan does. So I don't know where things are going to go in that front. There's everything with Thomas in this episode. Obviously, Atria is trying to help him more and more with his powers. Because obviously, you know, it's becoming a hassle. Well, for one, learning to use his telekinesis a little bit more. But also, like, his telepathy is, you know, reading people's minds is becoming a hassle. Because now it's like, without even trying, he's reading people's minds all the time. So it's like, okay, how do I deal with that? And he only has Atria to be there for him, you know, because, you know, and I thought it was such an interesting parallel that they were making of like how for him it's like, oh, like she's like, yeah, I get it, it's difficult, you know, being strange and different and special, but she's like, yeah, but you know, which is, she's like, even I'm kind of think it's kind of weird considering the fact that's all I've ever wanted, which is like, yeah, as someone who's a clone, of course, I mean, once again, look at her purple hair, like you do whatever you can to, you know, differentiate, to kind of stand out, which she was like, you are different, you know, you are special, and he's like, I love you, and she doesn't really respond, but I mean, I think, you know, because this whole relationship thing is something new to her. It was never before Thomas. She's never been in one, so I'm sure this is something that they're both still figuring out. So I was actually I thought it was kind of neat that at the end of the day, Thomas did help Jax, just because it's like, yeah, he had his issues with her, but he understands, like, you know, it's like all that she's going through right now. You know, for her, it's like all the stuff before, reading an alien language, being uninfected by that virus that was affecting everyone else in the group except for her. It seems like that was kind of the catalyst to start being like, okay, there's something different about me, but maybe finding that out kind of knocked a lot of those memories loose. It's interesting, this is all coming out after the fact is that Thomas saw that. So maybe when she touched Thomas that episode and that memory popped up, maybe it knocked something loose in the rest of Jax too, or maybe just, like I said, maybe it's a combination of everything triggered something like, yeah, there's something there. And like Tierney had said, like the moment she gets that key, which we still don't know what that key unlocks, but it's like the moment she unlocks it, she's going to realize, oh, wait, I should not have looked into this. She's going to regret like ever look into it, knowing that there's more to this whole situation, you know? So that's definitely interesting. I did like it though when the memory ended up ending, you have Atria there holding Thomas's hand while you have Raylan and Pilar there holding, Jack's hand. So I thought that was kind of neat because Atria had a reminder. It's like, Thomas feels complicated about the situation he does because it's like he just feels hurt because it's like you couldn't trust him enough to tell him. But it's like, we know you're a good person because what you did to help me and what you did to help Pilar speaks volumes on who you are. So it's just that moment of weakness when it came to like something terrible happened to you. You lost your home and you lost your family, so of course, like, yes, she should have told Thomas the truth, but at the same time, it's like you can understand her need to find out the truth. She just kind of went about it a little bit of a crappy way, but I think, from what we can see, it seems like Thomas is on his way to forgiving her, so it looked like their friendship is kind of building up again, so that's good. Then on the other side of things, you have Xander's story where he's kind of in this position where this dude who's part of CIS, his name's Prescott, he doesn't trust Xander because of the whole situation when they went to, New Portland, that Raylan was there, that he helped out and whatnot. It's like, you should have taken care of that Zatarian when you had the chance. Like, now they know that portal technology is a thing. Like, basically any leaked information is kind of on you. And it's like, wait, you're saying that I leaked this to the Zatarians? You think I'm betraying EarthCom? It's like, well, are you? And obviously Osborn's got Xander's back. It's like, of course not. But, it's kind of sad because, like, Xander was like, oh my God, Prescott, you're amazing. Of course I know who you are. Just for him to literally, like, a minute or two later shit on you and call you basically a traitor of like, oh, you can't be trusted, which is funny in the long run because it turns out the traitor the entire time was his wife. I had a feeling the moment I felt like I was actually halfway expecting her to actually show up when that librarian dude was dropping off the files, but it turns out no, he didn't. She didn't. He gave it to like a drone, but Xander shot that down. It's kind of interesting because while Xander's on his mission to kind of investigate this whole situation, he runs into, Pilar, Raylan, as well as Jax, because she's asking him for help. It's like, ask my uncle for those files. He's literally in the middle of something, dealing with a mole, can't really go into specifics. And I love Raylan being like, oh, the fact of the matter is she's in so much pain. Can't you see what she needs? And he's like, don't tell me what Jax needs. And it's like, I even love Pilar being like, wait, are you two fighting over Jax? I think she said, like, oh, that's kind of odd. I love that this situation didn't pull Pilar completely away from being like, oh, notice what this is all about you, Jax. You should take notice of that. That's interesting. I just thought it was kind of interesting. I love later on too, Atria popped into the room while they were trying to do the ritual one last time, and she kind of disturbs it because she's like, oh my God, there's a gunfight happening out there, and it's like, oh, did I interrupt something? What was going on here? What's interesting though, and it's something a line of like, oh yeah, the stuff that he used to give her to kind of put her in this state of mind to kind of access these memories. It's like, oh, like, it's very hard to come across amongst his people, even on his planet. Only people of royal families get access to it. And then, like, even Pilar's like, whoa, you're from a royal family? Okay, and maybe I kind of, been a little too harsh on you, which is like, that seems like that's a storyline waiting to kind of be developed. Because it seems like, it didn't seem like a, royal family. The fact is, it seemed like a situation where he's reluctant to rely on his name, just maybe because that causes some issues back home or something. I don't know, because like he's just like, yeah, so this is kind of a one shot. So I guess for him, it's like if he had to get any more, he'd have to explain why he's getting it, and maybe that's the issue in itself. So it's like, if I do this, it's a one shot. Otherwise, I'd have to kind of use more of my influence as potentially a royal, and I don't want to do that. So I don't know. I'm interested to kind of see what ends up being more from that or not, or rather, like, whether there is more to it or not. We also learned that apparently Osborn killed his own wife because it turns out, because Maya had brought up the whole point of like, oh yeah, Osborn was actually married at one point in time. The fact is he hasn't told you about that doesn't mean he doesn't trust you. It's just that the fact is, Osborn compartmentalizes, and the fact of the matter is, when you're a part of this world, it doesn't mean they don't trust you, but eventually you get to the point where you are able to be a part of their world, which is interesting, once again, considering the fact it's his wife, Prescott's wife, Maya, ended up being the traitor. The moment he was like, it was Fleming, I was like, oh, is it actually Prescott? Or are we going to find out, oh, it's not actually Prescott? It's because it said the last name, but it's like, oh, that could have been either Prescott or that could have been Maya. But then I was like, oh, is it going to look like it's Prescott, but then it's going to turn out to be Maya? Like, I was suspicious for a while, but nevertheless. But Osborn had brought up the fact is, oh, no enemy had killed my wife. I killed her because she was the enemy, and I found out about it. I'm trying to save you that trouble. So basically, it's like, oh, why is Xander standing here with a gun? He's got to be there just in case. We don't know how you're going to react to this news. So finding out the mole they've been looking for is his wife. I guess she's been playing because she even brought up in the whole conversation of like, oh, anytime CIS stuff comes up, I gracefully remove myself. It's like, yeah, gracefully remove yourself with ulterior motives to listen and give that information away. Because this also has to deal with like the files on Harlan. It's like he should have never known about it. I guess because they're files that tell the truth, because it was a buried secret that only Jax and Elena knew about, because it's like they kept the rest of the world, because even in class they're learning this story about like, oh yeah, Nelson Fisk, oh, the great work that he was doing, which now our main group of characters are like, nah, everything he was involved in was 100% BS. We now know because of Jax, her memories. So there's that whole complication, and I guess that's what those files are, and he wants access to those files because he maybe wants to cover his trail, to be like, oh, no, don't want that kind of surfacing, like the truth about all that. Maybe that's what those files being taken away for are about, because it's interesting because Osborn went through the trouble of making sure that no one got access to him. So there's that. Then there's the whole situation with Xander and the lady from what's the little bar in the school called? Regardless, obviously we found out there was obviously something between them. Obviously Jax comes looking for her uncle, but sees them and is like, oh, I'm gonna leave, which we know is super complicated because Xander is supposed to be, because he definitely has feelings for her. But I think for him, it's like this whole meeting with Prescott and the whole question of loyalty, like not letting your feelings get the best of you. I think he particularly let that happen, or maybe even pushed for it, because he's trying to compartmentalize. It's like, I'm supposed to look after Jax, I'm supposed to report on her, that's it. I'm not supposed to be falling for her. So I think he's going to kind of, remove himself more from like feeling that way, because I think that previous episode when he was kind of waiting for her on his birthday, I think that's where he probably started realizing, like, no, I'm getting too attached. Like I said, the conversations this episode pushed that alone. So, like, I think that was his way to kind of counter that. So, like, obviously you can tell he has a thing for Jax. Obviously she has a thing for him. It's super obvious to everyone, So that's going to be an interesting thing to see where their dynamic and storyline goes together. But then we see at the end, Osborn's at a tombstone. I didn't pay attention to the name, but I'm assuming it was his wife's, but maybe it's not. There's the lady that walks up. It's like, oh, I'm surprised to actually see you here. It's like, it's because I need your help. Now, my mind immediately goes, either that's his wife that he supposedly killed, or that's supposed to be his sister, Jack's mom, that's supposedly dead. Those were my immediate thoughts. I'm kind of leaning more towards the wife situation because I think his sister is actually dead. I don't know, like the fact is that he does compartmentalize, that speaks volumes about it, but maybe that's why I'm like, it could easily just be his sister. I don't know. I'm so interested to find out what the hell is going on with all of this. Especially because now Jax is being like, yeah, there's definitely something up with me and my uncle's lying about it. So she's not going to believe anything he says. So she's not even going to go to him about stuff anymore. It's like, oh, I'm going to figure out what it is that he's hiding about me. And I think maybe she just start to soon find out that, Xander knows a lot, definitely knows a lot more than he lets on. So I'm very interested to see ultimately where this all ends up taking us. Like I said, figuring out what the hell Jax is exactly, what she is as a Pandora, what connection that has with Jax from 150 years ago. I'm so curious. But really, that's all I want to talk about today. So me, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.